today I'm with Jamie Lenman to chat emotional matters and mind matters.
Yeah.
How are you feeling today? How's your general mood?
Very good word. You know what, my emotional state is always lifted when I come to someone like 2000 Trees because it's such a friendly environment. It would be a friendly environment anyway if I was just coming as a festival goer with no musical affiliations, so to speak, because everything is so friendly and oriented towards the comfort of the festival goer. But as it is, as a musician with links to the festival, it's a little meeting place for a lot of my friends, and everyone is very positive towards me. A lot of people who enjoy my music are here, but then my friends in bands, I don't get to see them a lot, and we're all here on one day, and I get to see my manager and a lot of journalists that I'm friends with in this press area. So a lot of friends that I don't see a lot of the time, so it's hard to be bummed out at 2000 Trees. Yeah, I feel good.
Do you know when you wake up of the morning, like, this is going to be a good day, I know I'm going to be good on stage today? Do you have that kind of vibe when you wake up?
No, I don't really think that far ahead, if I'm honest with you. And it's rare that I have a sort of a feeling when I wake up that it's going to be a good or bad day. That's only if maybe something is hanging over from the previous day. If I went to bed thinking about something, I wake up and you have that moment of bliss and then you go, oh no, I've got it, so sometimes that. But in terms of performance, I don't really think about it much until we get there. And in fact, I'm doing maybe 5 times as many interviews today as I will play music. I've spent maybe 3 hours doing interviews, now I'm only doing 45 minutes on stage, so it's easy to forget that I'm actually here to play some music.
Yeah, you've got work to do.
I just feel like I'm here to talk to lots of people and meet people and make new friends. So this is my favorite bit. And then when I get on stage, that's a whole another level of fun. But I'll only really start thinking about it about 10 minutes before and go, oh, how does that go? Okay, yeah.
I'd love to be that sort of person that doesn't
Forgetful.
worry, is it forgetful?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying I don't worry, but not usually on the day.
Yeah.
I've been worrying in the time leading up to this and in rehearsal and trying to figure out how the set will go and gauge what songs people want to hear. But not today, no. Too late for that now. Too late. Yeah.
What about after a gig? Do you overthink everything that you did on stage, the things you said to the crowd, maybe that dodgy note that you hoped people didn't hear, or do you just let it go, that's done, on to the next?
I know, I wish I could say that I just let it go, but no, I think like a lot of artists, I do revisit what I've just done because there's so much adrenaline pumping through you when you come off the stage, especially on a short set like today, that you feel like you could go and do it all again and your mind is racing and you look back over it, and it's quite a short, sharp shock to come off the stage. Today I'll be on the main stage and there will be thousands of people. They're not all my fans, but interested parties, people who haven't seen me before. Whatever way you slice it, there will be a huge amount of people looking at me and reacting whatever way, positively or negatively, to what I'm doing. And so to have that cut off, you come off the back of the stage and just you and your road manager and a towel. That one, it's really hard to cut that adrenaline off. So your mind naturally revisits what you've just done, and you sort of stress and you think, oh, was that a bad note? Not too much, just a little bit. The thing that makes it difficult or facilitates it, depending on how you feel about it, is that the internet, you get an instant reaction. It used to be, you didn't know how your gig had gone down until the papers came out next week. But now, as soon as you come off stage, someone sent an internet message about it, or posted a note about it online, and you get instant reviews, and it is very hard. And I don't know anyone, even people I know that are much more famous and successful than me in this business and other businesses, they still find it very hard to detach themselves from that kind of instant reaction. And it's mostly positive. I haven't seen anything negative, but I do have a look and I see I want to know what people thought of the show. And my wife will say, oh, look, Big Giga 25 says great set. And even though I don't know Big Giga, I think, oh, good. I'm glad that Big Giga 25 enjoyed it. So that has aided the immediate dissection of a performance.
So you are someone that will get straight on Twitter and look at your mentions?
Oh, no,
you
not
won't,
at all.
or
No.
you just see them?
No, maybe on like the bus home is what I'm saying, and then everyone's quiet and someone's I don't even have a phone that does it, thank God.
That's a blessing, I think.
This is my dumb phone from the 90s, but everyone else has a phone and everyone else looks and they say, oh, look what this person has said, and so I will look, yeah, but it's not something I rush to do at all. No, but it gets to you, doesn't it? It finds you. Social media finds you whatever you're doing, even if you are not connected to it, like I'm not.
And when you're having a bad day and you see one of those things, it can really just batter you down a bit further, can't it? If it just hits you at the wrong time.
Well, this is why, and if we're talking about mental health and social issues, it's not news to profess the opinion that perhaps social media isn't very healthy for people's minds. And but I mean, really, that kind of feedback and that interaction has always been there. But social media has just accelerated it and made it very quicker. Also a lot more extreme, and with the anonymity of it. And really, as an artist, I shouldn't be looking at any of this feedback. I shouldn't read any of my reviews, and I shouldn't look at any of the online feedback, even though I value what these people have to say. And I think a negative comment is just as, if it's well constructed and it's not just an insult, is just as valid as a positive comment. But really, as an artist, you shouldn't be looking at any of it. And I do feel deep down that a positive message is just as misleading or damaging as a negative message. You shouldn't really be looking at any of them, or at least they shouldn't inform your performance. And I don't think any of it, the positive or the negative, is good for your mental health, because it will warp your idea of yourself and what you're doing. And if I only read the positive stuff, I would blow up into a huge balloon, and my head is already big enough already. And if I only read the negative stuff, I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. And this isn't just for performers, this is for everyone. This isn't just for people who put themselves in the public sphere like I do, and only to an extent. This is for people with everyday lives who don't perform. Even they are subject to positive and negative reinforcement online. And like I say, it's always been there, but the online element has helped accelerate and exaggerate it. So be careful. You have to keep these things at arm's length.
I agree. And I think as creatives, you also don't want it to inform your decisions, your creative decisions, because it's got to be what's coming from you and not be informed by other people's opinions. Yeah. So there's that danger.
I mean, you have to, you're correct, you do have to listen to your audience. It's the difference between, let's say, making a record and playing live. When you make a record, if you make an album, I've just been making an album, and I do that for me. I write the songs that I want to write. I hope people will enjoy it, but I don't have them in mind when I write it. Not contradictorily, but conversely, maybe that's the wrong word. When you come and play live, that is very much for the people. And so, I won't write a song for people, but I will play a particular song that I've already written for people. And so when I think about a live set and when I play, I think, okay, well, what do I want to play? But what do people want to hear? And you've got to mix those two. So I don't think you can really take that into consideration when you're creating your art, but when you're presenting it, then you do have to take into account what the feedback from people. And I hope that I play songs that people want to hear. I hope I don't get too bogged down in bizarre album tracks and deep cuts that only I'm interested in. I hope I've got a finger on the pulse of what people want. I want to give them a good time, because live shows are for the audience. They're for the audience. That's why we do it.
Now, in terms of when you get in a bad phase or in a bad mood, do you tend to communicate via your drawings or your lyrics, or are you quite good at telling people just in a normal spoken form?
Well, I'm afraid that I tend to internalize, at least in the immediate time when it happens. But I'm pretty good at sitting myself down and digging those feelings out and saying, no, look, why do we feel the way we feel? Let's discuss it. And so, a lot of times I can send people around the bend just to talk about it, but it's so important to talk about it. And sometimes it can be very difficult, but it's much better to work out why you feel a certain way. It doesn't inform my visual art, if I'm illustrating or designing or animating, which is what I spend most of my time doing. Necessarily, the music I make is very much more expressive, because the commissions that I get for the illustration, the visual stuff is, it's editorial illustration. So if I'm illustrating an article, it doesn't help if I'm putting my inner rage into it. They just want to know about fine wine pairings. So, but in my music, I'm free to do that. And so you will find a lot of my personal feelings in the music. And that's really, I think, is the most valid thing that I can say. I don't really feel so comfortable anymore. When I was younger, I used to point the finger a lot at things outside in society. The older you get, you learn to be a bit more patient with those things, and I'm more hesitant now to point the finger and say, you're what's wrong with the world. So the subject matter of my songs does tend to be more personal about how I feel about things. and maybe people can relate, and I think they do. I think people do relate to even the more personal stuff I write. I think that's borne out by the reaction to the records. So if it comes out at all, it will come out in the songs rather than the visual arts.
Do you ever write a song and you think, I've exposed too much here, I've been too honest, I'm not sure I can put that on the record, or I'm not sure I'll be able to perform that because it's so emotional?
No, I don't think you can get too honest, really. You have to be in a safe place to express those things, and for me that's, in a studio with a trusted producer. That's when you make the best records, is when you make them with your friends. But also at my shows, when I sing these songs, they are also a safe space, because the people that come to my shows, even if it is their first time, actually, maybe even if it is their first time, I hope they've picked up the vibe from me or from my records that, I'm very honest, and we're going to have a personal evening. It's not like a seminar or weird, it's fun, rock and roll. But the personal songs, I feel safe, the audience make me feel safe, that I can connect with them in that way. There are some songs that they weren't too personal to put on tape, but one song in particular about when my dad died, when I was there when it happened, it was very personal, and I only sang it the once on the record. We just recorded it once live through, and that was it, and I didn't want to sing it again because I felt like it had been said. And similarly, I don't think there's anything to be gained really from singing that live, because I've said what I wanted to say, it's on the record, and it may be a little bit tough to sing live. Some of the songs I sing are very personal, a little bit tough to sing live. That one may be too tough, but I'm glad I said it, just maybe not live, eh? And people do ask for it, and I have to say, hey man, I'm glad you love it, and I'm glad it connected with you, but that's a bit too deep for this evening. You maybe come around my house and we have some marshmallows and we talk it over, but and people do come up to me and they've had similar experiences. When you get to 30, I lost my dad when I was 25, which is too young, but there are people, one of my old drummers in one of my old bands, who lost his dad when he was 15, which is just unbelievable, and there are people who lose their parents even earlier. And so, but you get to the sort of age now, approaching middle age, 30s, 40s, where you will lose people, and you might start to lose your parents. And I've met people who have lost their parents at a similar age to me, very young, and they've really connected with that song. And we have a little moment between ourselves, and I'm really glad that maybe they heard something in what I said that connected with them and chimed with them and helped them get through it a little bit. I would never say that my music is like I write music to help people, but if it does, then that's wonderful, that's fantastic, and I love to meet those people and talk to them about it.
When you are going through something traumatic like grieving process or anything like that, do you find yourself gravitating towards certain things to help you cope? Like, are you someone that just is a workaholic, for instance? Do you start hanging out with dodgy people that have bad influences? Is there something that you can see a pattern of things that you do?
I've never really been, I don't have many vices. The only vice that I really have is eating. I used to eat a lot when I was younger, but even then, with something like a family tragedy or troubling emotional times, I don't think even when I've been through these periods you can really correlate that to an increase in eating, which was my only vice. I've never taken drugs or smoked or drank, and I wouldn't like to say what would happen if I did. Maybe I would lean on those crutches. I've always relied on the support of my friends, but mostly my wife, my beautiful wife, who I've been married to for 11 years now, and I was with her for a long time before that, and she, as it should be in a relationship like this, she is I rely on her. I rely on her in the good times and in the bad times when I'm feeling tough, and she has seen me through so much stuff. I would say that, really she's provided much more support to me. I think I've needed more support than she has. She's very strong, but I support her through her tough times, and just overwhelmingly grateful to her for helping me through these things. So no drugs or drink or fast food, it's just my wife. Really.
And do you think that you're quite good at asking for that help, or do they just know you need it by the way you're behaving, your demeanour?
Oh, well, I've always been very open about needing help, and so I've never had to ask, but I think that's because we've always known how to read each other's feelings, and you don't need to ask, is the sort of situation. Yeah.
What about on tour though, with say crew, your management, your techs, your bandmates? Have you had that same open relationship, or?
On tour is very difficult, and a lot of the problems that I had with, if we can call it mental health, I'd never been diagnosed with anything, but I went through a rough period in my 20s when I was touring, and touring is generally not a very healthy lifestyle, physically or emotionally. And I had, my band of brothers and my band, and we were close, but only really to a certain level, and we were also sort of fighting against each other in that band. It wasn't very healthy. And some of my toughest times were as a result of being on tour. Touring isn't healthy. And for young people who are still developing their personalities and their minds in your early 20s, I was touring pretty much non-stop between the ages of 18 and 24, which is formative.
Yeah.
And I was in a lot of trouble for a long time. And touring really didn't help that. I'm glad I did it, but it was tough. And I only really experienced the full fallout when I stopped touring and I had space to collect my thoughts. And I sank a little deep into the bad times, and then I was brought out of it. But no, the answer is that touring does not help at all, no.
And being with people that you don't necessarily want to confide in or feel relaxed to do
Yeah,
so.
and that's no reflection on the people that I was touring with or in a band with. I love all those people. But there's so much else going on. You don't want to burden those people. You feel like it's a burden because they're dealing with their own stuff as well. And we've got to play an hour's rock and roll, in a minute. So you don't have time to process that.
I wish people could see the reality of touring, because I think they think it's all like, hotel rooms and throwing TVs out.
Well, I think, even if people don't think it's like, because a lot of people back in the day, they would think it was glamorous and hotels and whatnot and kissing lots of strangers. And I think now people are more clued to the fact that it is a bit scummy and a bit scuzzy, but even that has its own glamour. Yeah. And it was fun. It's like a fun adventure. You don't know where you're going to sleep tonight, and you meet new people. Don't get me wrong, touring is fun, but it is scummy and gritty and dirty, and it takes a toll. And I do think people need to realize that most of it ain't fun. It is 23 hours of waiting around and an hour of music, and the rest of it, you're away from home. I think maybe if you are someone who, I've never been a big drinker or a big partier, and you do have free reign, every venue you walk into gives you a crate of beer. It's the first thing they give you. Before they give you food, they will give you a crate of beer. So that will fuel any dependencies you have. And if you can handle your drink, great. If you can't, that's going to put you in trouble. And there is a drink culture that we already have in this country anyway, and that is exacerbated on tour. Luckily, I was able to step out of that because I never drank anyway, but it can be self-destructive and people get into bad habits. It's unhealthy. But it's also sort of fun. Lots of fun stuff is unhealthy, like Mars bars, they're fun and they're unhealthy. And you've just got to, I sound like I'm being down on tour, not at all. It was a fantastic experience, and I grew up on tour and it made me who I am, and I'm happy with who I am. You've just got to know how to cope with it, and I wish I'd learned a bit earlier how to cope with it, is all.
Okay, let's end then on what you tell your, shall we say 17 to 24-year-old self about coping with stress and coping with just life in general. What would you tell that guy?
I would just say, chill out. It's not as important as you think it is. When you're young, like I was young, I couldn't, even at 24, I remember I couldn't see the future. I just thought all there was now. And that's when you make some great art. But you sort of think, now is all there is. And it doesn't matter if I die tonight on stage, because at least there was that show. But I would just say, dude, it's not that important. I mean, have fun, but it's not the be all and end all. And you will continue existing after this, and you'll have great times. Just chill out. And I think that's the same with a lot of, especially teenagers at school, with the pressures that they get put on them by their teachers for their exams, but also their peers for how to behave and how to look. It is just not that important. And I know because I was there, and I remember. I'm 34 and I haven't been in school for however long years, don't test my maths. But I can still remember the huge weight of pressure on people in the school system, and with my peers as well. And I just wish there was some way to get across to these people, it's just not that important. Don't worry, don't stress. Your exams, they're not that important. Your buddies, the new t-shirt, the new crepes, whatever, they're not that important. How cool you look in the disco, doesn't matter. Just chill out. That's all I would say.
Doesn't matter that you're standing on the edge of the disco, no one wants to dance with you. You'll find someone.
You'll find someone. It doesn't matter. Just chill out, relax, take your time. Doesn't matter. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
I think I still need to tell myself that now sometimes.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
We'll be fine. Shall we leave on that note? You'll be fine, guys. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Bye.
Here we go.
Thank you very much.
at all. Thank